And we're here. We're live. You see what you see? It said live on there. I used to think it was live, like Jake Isles Live. It was really Jake Isles Live. Anyway, that was an album back in the 60s and 70s. Shh, don't tell anybody I'm that old. But I'm here to answer your home improvement questions. That's right. Saturdays on Sports Radio 610 from 9 to 12. And on Sundays, also on Sports Radio 610 from 8 to 11. And of course, always right here on Facebook Live. That's why it's live, so I'll answer your questions here too. You can write them in, and Charlie is going to come up here in a minute. Come up, Charlie. And he'll take all that, and he's going to run all the show, and I'll answer your questions here too. So we have 3 places now.
I'm here to rescue you. You know, I'm sitting here. I normally only wear one of these earbuds, but today I put them both in, and I discovered that on a recent update on the Mac operating system, these things are spatially aware. So when I turn my head this way, you're over here. And when I turn my head this way, you're over there. So it kind of freaks you out because the sound is everywhere.
Well, you look like a walrus.
Thank you. Cuckoo Cachoo.
All
right.
More records label.
Hey, thank you so much. Yes, we're here till Thursday. Hey, wait, today's Thursday. Listen, we have, we take your questions here. And by the way, somebody forgot to turn on the Ask Tom. There you are.
Live.
In the right-hand corner.
Ask Tom live.
Yes, we're going to live, and we're going to do that. And we do that to answer the questions you send us when you visit HomeShowRadio.com right there on that website and click on the Ask Tom button, and you fill out the forms. You send us the questions. We can answer those questions here. But as an added bonus for you today only, or at least for the next 30 minutes, you can go ahead and put your questions in the comments section on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're tuned in. And we'll take your questions here and answer them as well. So it's kind of like being on the radio, except you're going to type it and we're going to talk back. Fair enough?
I'm good with it.
All right. Let's get right to the questions this week, Tom. Let's just cut right to it. The first question to us comes
from... I can't type, so go.
From Jimmy in Panorama Village, Texas. He says, what causes a little water dripping from the exhaust fan in the bathroom after a shower? Is this an issue? How can I solve it? It only happens sometimes and not every time I take a shower.
Well, it usually happens when it's cold. So that would be in the winter time because the pipe is really cold. Or secondly, it could happen if you take a really long shower as opposed to a quick shower and how much steam is in the bathroom. It's just the same thing as if you had a cold can of soda and it drips on the outside, and if it's not insulated, it drips all over. That's all that's happening. It's not something that's dangerous or a problem. Most people notice it mainly when it's cold because the pipe will be cold because it goes up into the attic, and so it tends to get a little colder. Or maybe your air conditioner made it cold. I don't know. But usually that's the time of year people see it. And if you take a real hot, steamy shower, water, people don't realize, they think it dries up and goes away. Water never goes away. Water goes from liquid. You can make it a solid by freezing it, or it'll go into a vapor. It's in the air. It always is there. It's just changing form and changing form. And so what you're doing is you're sending it out the shower head. You're getting the steam going. That steam is a cloud. It's water. It touches the cold surface. The cold surface pulls the heat out of the air. Then it starts to pull the moisture out and drips back down. And you can go ahead and heat it up again, and it's just a constant cycle. Even if you wipe it up and put it on a towel, it still evaporates out to the air, and we call it, the towel dried. No, the towel didn't dry. The water just evaporated away, and so the towel, the result is a dry towel. But that's what's happening. There's not much you can do. Just don't worry about it.
All the water that was on Earth when Jesus walked the earth is still here today. Right.
Absolutely. Now it has pharmaceuticals like birth control and antidepressants and stuff in it.
Right.
But it's still water. That's why if you go to a lake, if you go to a lake in Arizona in the mountains, they do tests there and they will find exactly what I was joking about somewhat, birth control stuff and everything, because we take it, we put it in the toilet, we send it to the plant treats it, sends it back out to the water supply, it evaporates, becomes a cloud, and then pharmaceuticals rain down all over the earth. That's the way it is. There's really so much funny, but it is.
Yeah, there's so much in the water now that if Jesus were to turn it into wine, it would actually become tequila.
Well, he would at least that, or he'd need a filter to pour it through. That's
true. That's true. That's for darn sure. Hey, Jimmy John's got a question about welding. Jimmy John, in case you're new to the show, is one of our regular viewers. We love you for being here. I'm not sure if his friends call him Jibby or John or what have you, but we're willing to examine these things. But he says a question about welding for you, Tom. He says he just had a vendor replace hinges on a garage gate in our neighborhood. He used D&D Tech hinges, which he hears are great. No maintenance ever. Well, the gate broke a weld this week after 7 days. The vendor says someone hit the gate. I don't think he did a good job since it was welded on top of a painted surface. Being a heavy gate, does that mean he did not install it properly? What do you say?
If it's a weld that came from the factory and it was a weld on the hinge, then of course it's the factory's fault. Whether he painted it or not, I'm not going to tell you what he did wrong. But if he put a weld on there and it did not, and it broke, the weld broke, not the metal, but the weld should be stronger than the metal. Just like a glue joint in wood is stronger than the actual wood. So if it breaks, the metal should break. The weld should not break at all. So if the weld broke, could have been porosity, it could have been the wrong heat, it could have been contaminated with the paint. There's a lot of things that'll make a weld not do well because it has to bring all those metals. You have to heat them up and bond them all together into one type of metal. So if the weld broke, it's the weld's fault.
So
whoever did the weld, I should say.
Right. So, but he says specifically that they welded it onto a painted surface. Wouldn't that? Oh, look, hang on.
Yeah, you always grind if you're going to weld onto a surface.
Hang on a second. He says here the weld broke. The vendor welded the gate post that was painted, so he did it to a painted post. He says.
Yeah, and what you would do is take a wire brush on the end of your grinder, and you would clean the area nice and shiny before you weld. Even rusty metal. When we're in welding school, when I'm in my welding program and the students are preparing their metal for the weld, you always have to clean the metal, make sure it's shiny. Even if there's galvanizing or anything on there, it all has to come off, and then you weld it, clean the weld, and then you can go ahead and spray paint it back or they actually have a little galvanizing stuff we can melt back on there if it's something to do with that. But the surface has to be clean. Now, can you weld through paint and make it strong enough to last maybe for a hinge? Maybe, but in this case, I'm just telling you, if the weld broke, the weld was no good. I don't care what the reason is, so I don't want to say it's just one reason. It could be a million reasons, but it's the weld was no good.
I used to work with that guy. Rusty metal.
Nice. Okay, fine.
Next question comes from Anna in Montclair, Virginia. She says, I recently had my attic insulated, and shortly thereafter, I noticed water spots on my floor. I had the insulation company come back and see if they could fix the problem. They claimed that it was not water, but oil, and said that they did nothing wrong. There are no plumbing pipes under that floor, Tom. It appears that the insulation company covered the air vents. How can Anna fix this problem?
Well, I'm not really sure what's going on, but to look at the question and do what I can do here on the radio, or in this case on Facebook, and YouTube, is if you think and you suspect that they blocked the air holes and you think that's a problem, just have them unblock it. And let's see if that solves the problem. If that solves the problem, everybody's happy. So if that is the problem, I don't know if it is. I don't know. Could it be oil? Maybe you did spill oil there. Maybe somebody else didn't tell you. I don't know because I can't point fingers and say this is exactly what it was. But at the end of the question, he says, they blocked the air vents. What should I do? Well, the first thing I would do is try unblocking the air vents, and I'm sure if they just insulated, it wouldn't be that difficult. And then see if it goes away. If it goes away, I don't know how it would cause it, but if it goes away, then I'm good with it.
I've never heard
I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, I've never heard
it's one of those weird things. Something's going on there, and I don't have enough information to say this is it. I just don't know. But if you think it's the air, it's the air.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of why we say send us pictures.
Pictures help.
Because pictures help. Yeah, we can tell you. But
videos.
But for now, I think that's good advice. Just go ahead and clear out the vents and see if that solves the problem.
Yeah, if you think that's what it is, and you have them clear it out because they did it. Hey, you blocked the vents. Let's open the holes, and it goes away. I don't know why it did it. You'll probably figure that out after it goes away. But that would be the first thing I would tell you to do. That's how I would start to fix it.
Fred is in Rockport. He says, I live in an elevated house, and we have tile floors. Can I install luxury vinyl floors over the tile, or do I need to, I think that's D-O there, buddy. But anyway, do I need to strip it down to the subfloor and then install the vinyl flooring? How would you go about that, Tom?
If the tile is down well, you don't want to mess with it, and you're putting vinyl, the slap down, luxury vinyl, whatever type it is, and it's okay for that, you can put it right on the tile. But you have to make sure that all the grout joints and everything are hidden. In other words, you have to put a very thin coat of leveling compound and screed it out over the whole thing so it's super smooth. Because any little ridge or anything where the grout joints are, they can actually mirror through, and you'll see under the vinyl, you'll see how it starts to mirror all the little indentions and stuff. But if you want to put it down, the tile's down really well, you don't want to pull it up, and you just want to float a little thin layer of the compound down, the leveling compound, to make sure it's nice and smooth and flat, and it'll level itself and get real smooth once you squeegee it out. Then go ahead and put the vinyl on top.
Yeah, that leveling compound.
It's not cheap, but it'll and you'll need a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But
and
you
they
need
sell it
just a little bit, just a
They
little bit.
sell it in these little bags.
It's because it's heavy.
Yeah, because it's expensive. So.
Yeah, it is.
I'm speaking
Got
of
a latex
experience.
in there.
Yeah, if you're new to the show, the reason I'm saying is when we moved in here to our Taj Mahal, we put that luxury vinyl flooring in our lobby and in our
nice.
kitchen area. It's real nice, but downstairs is a cement floor, and they had to put that leveling compound out. And it's kind of like during Harvey, when we discovered that Houston isn't flat, and that some neighborhoods that you think are flat are really several feet lower. When they ran that leveling compound across there, it was amazing how many imperfections and non-level points there were in the floor. And I say that partly for Anna's benefit here is that if you're going to run that leveling compound, if you're going to put that stuff over the tile, to your point, Tom, those imperfections, those cracks, they will absolutely come through, and you'll be amazed.
You'll see everything.
And you'll be amazed how much of that leveling compound you go through.
You
Because
do.
every one of those little ridges runs a long way.
And for now on, I have to call you Jethro.
Why is that?
Because you said, I have a cement floor. It's concrete. Cement is just the Portland part. But if you have a cement pond in your backyard, then get Ellie Mae out. She's cute.
Movie stars.
Yeah.
The whole thing, yeah.
That's right. Okay,
You know what's scary? You know what's
What?
scary? I wonder how many people even know what the hell we're talking about.
I know, that's how old we are. And I can sing the song. Okay,
Oh,
but I won't.
You're on.
But, no. Not doing it.
No nerve. Come
No.
listen to me now, but a boy.
No.
No.
Boy, yeah,
A man named Jed.
And Jed.
Poor mountain,
Poor mountain
man.
kid, barely kept his family fed. Okay,
Fed.
let's just move on. Will
Then
you
one
please?
day he was shooting the squirrel
Oh,
up from the
God,
gun.
I'll go to sleep tonight. I'll be thinking about
I know what you're thinking when you're watching the show. Where's Tennessee Ernie Ford when you need him?
Yeah, who's that?
Probably the same place as Jim Clampett. All right. Chris in
Move on,
Northwest.
everybody just hung up.
Yeah, that's right. I'm watching the audience count down here. All right, Chris
giving your
in
wife
Northwest
thing. Move
Houston
on.
says when it's cold out, the kitchen cabinets on the outside wall get it cold inside, and the colder outside, the colder they feel inside. I think there could be a connection here. If I open the cabinet door, it will be warmer. This is on the north side of the house. There is a window besides the cabinet on one side. Would this mean that there is poor insulation or no insulation on the wall? And what would you suggest I do, if anything, to remedy the situation, Tom?
Every house has that. If you lived up north in really cold climates for a long period of time, people actually keep their cabinets opened a little bit underneath a sink so the pipes don't freeze under a cabinet. It'll get really cold under there. The heat doesn't go under there. The air conditioning doesn't go under there. It just gets really cold. It has nothing to do with the wall. It's just you don't have something that will heat up unless heat is getting to it. So if it concerns you, then and in the old days you would see before everybody had air conditioning and it would get kind of moldy under those cabinets, they would actually have vents and stuff on those doors underneath the kitchen sink because it would get so moldy under there. It has to have some air circulation. But as far as being a big problem, no. As far as it being a problem in Houston or in the Texas area where you just notice it 3 days out of the year and you think it's the end of the world, that's what people feel in northern climates. They open the cabinets, they feel it on their knees and their shins and stuff. They feel that cold air and the hot air sucking in, the cold air moving out. It's just natural. So if it bothers you, just open the cabinet door a little bit if you want. Quite frankly, I wouldn't worry about it.
we get that question in the wintertime about, and it's one of the things we talk about when we're talking about freezing pipes. If you're not in the Houston area, or Texas, certainly along the Gulf Coast, your house is probably better insulated than ours. And
because you insulate it differently. Everything's insulated. We worry about the summertime. We don't need all that thick insulation. If everybody did it on the homes, you would raise the cost of homes even more for no reason at all. It's just like people who feel drafts coming through glass in front of a window. We're so sensitive down here because we really don't design homes for that. In the summertime, you don't feel the heat the air conditioning or the heat coming in. You feel the heat going out, so that cold air starts to circulate inside the house and causes a draft. And old homes in the north, they get real drafty too for the same reasons, quite frankly. But it's just people are so much more sensitive down here. You can't have the perfect even feeling house in a cold climate because it's called the Delta T from inside to outside is so great. Think about this. In the summertime in Houston, if it reaches 100 degrees and we keep our homes at even 70 or 75, I'd say that's a pretty good comfortable range. That's about a 25 to 28 degree difference. In the north climates, Charlie, and you know this in the Northeast, you keep your house inside maybe 65 or 68 because that's about how you're pushing your heater, but it can be 10 below zero, so you get a Delta T, a difference that is dramatic. So it's a whole different ballgame.
And when you get that kind of temperature, it's so funny because with the town where I grew up in New Hampshire, up in Whitefield, New Hampshire, I saw that it was 17 below zero last night.
Yeah.
I miss it up there.
You can have 60 to 80 degree difference from inside to outside. And on the most uncomfortable day in the world here in Houston, it's going to be 25 to 26 degrees. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine going in and out of the human body, how you feel the difference.
The difference is that we can have temperatures in the 20s overnight. It'll be 75 or 80 by the afternoon here.
Absolutely.
And so that's a whole other story. But the point I was trying to make is that we talk about this, about protecting your pipes. And I think it goes for the North Country too. And that is that one of the defense things you do is you open your cabinet doors because of the pipes in the walls behind them. It allows the ambient heat of the room to at least provide some level of protection. So,
it actually heats the pipe, and then the heat moves into the wall on the pipe a little bit because heat will transfer. So that's exactly what you do up north. You just open your cabinets and go to bed.
Right. Yeah. Or it's like we used to put the milk on the back porch up there because didn't have to take up space in the fridge.
When I moved to Lake Placid, all right, I got to go here. We had a party, and I thought I was the cleverest guy in the world. We had a patio. It was full of snow. And it was beer night. It was a party.
Oh, no.
I put all the beer out in the snow. And I said, go get your beer. Everybody came in with a frozen can. They're like, what the hell are you from? I thought it would just stay cold, like an ice chest. It was frozen. That party really was bad.
What you got there is Antifa beer, suitable for throwing.
Exactly. Yeah, I did not make a good impression that night.
Yeah.
So Southern boy with all those Yankees. Go ahead.
Well, my father-in-law celebrated his 90th a couple weeks back, and congratulations, Chuck. And it was cold out there, and we wound up putting. When I say cold, I mean for Houston, it was like in the 30s and low. That's to us, that's Antarctica, and we wound up putting stuff on the back porch to keep it cold. And Sandy was like, "I don't know where to put this." I was like, "Oh, I know where I grew up. Put it outside. Just keep the dogs in." So, last question. All right, here's one from John in Friendswood. This is a long one, so hang in there. He says he's a long-time listener since 1987. He says he's heard you say to oversize the evaporator coil. I had an upstairs unit replaced 8 years ago, and I requested the coil be oversized. However, I think the installer misunderstood and oversized the condenser coil instead. The upstairs condenser coil is larger than my downstairs, even though the upstairs is 3 ton and downstairs is 4 ton. Now it looks as if my upstairs unit has failed. Do you still recommend an oversized evaporator coil when I replace the upstairs unit, Tom?
Okay, first off, you got it backwards. So that whole question is he did it correctly. If the condensing coil outside, which in many cases in the old days would be bigger than the evaporator coil on the inside. The reason is if you have an oversized evaporator coil, and when the SER ratings came out, they went to that trend where they were making the evaporator coils too big. And he is listening to shows way back when, 20 plus years ago, when that whole switch of energy efficiency started to change. The big mistake was they made an evaporator coil bigger. It ran warmer so it wouldn't dehumidify. So to combat that, you did two things. One is you undersized the evaporator coil on the inside of the house, kept the condensing coil the size you needed for the capacity of the house, and you also added what was called an expansion valve. Nowadays, all the systems, because of the efficiency, come with some sort of modified or upgraded expansion valve. So you don't hear me say that on the show at all anymore. And you don't have to undersize or oversize the coils because they've gotten past that transition, and I relate it to toilets. Remember when the low flush toilets came out, they didn't work. Now they work fine. It's because they had to retool and relearn the entire manufacturing process. Same with the air conditioners. And so it was a learning curve for the industry. But right now you buy them to match, and that's really the way people go. You can tweak them a little bit. You can get two-stage coils. You can get variable speeds. And I'm not going to get into all the bells and whistles. It's a lot different than it was 25 years ago. But that's where you've got the old standards that don't apply today. So the beauty of radio is I can change my mind every Saturday and just keep going on with the new stuff.
Well, it works for Jim Cramer on CNBC. He can change his mind every day.
Too. So, okay, fine.
Don't buy that. I didn't tell you to buy that. All right,
but I tell you what, Charlie, he's a listener back from the David Debian days, Central City Air, back in the 80s, early 90s. It was a mess back then. And so the expansion valves and the undersized evaporator coils were the way to make it work. Yes.
But to your point, we don't do that anymore.
No, because the air conditioning industry has evolved into a better product, and that's why you don't hear me talk about a lot of things that I talked about certain ways back 30 years ago. It's one of the reasons I don't even like writing books, because they get on a shelf and they get outdated in 6 months. That's the beauty of live radio, is every week I can update. And so in this case, that update has been made for a long time now, and you just match a system. I'm not big on the variable speeds and dual speeds and all that. You can talk to your contractor about it. Kind of like people say, talk to your doctor about vaccines. That's up to you.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Real short, explain the difference, why that is?
Yeah, and let me just finish though. I like a single stage. I like to come on and go off. They're so efficient, and they don't have all the bells and whistles that break down. They have a lot more expensive repair costs because motors have computer boards in them, and there's a lot of parts and pieces that are very expensive on the ones that have all. It's like any computer or car or anything. They're much more expensive to repair, and quite frankly, the single stage units compared to what you would have had 20 years ago if you're replacing a unit today and you keep it simple, it is so much more advanced anyhow. Like we just talked about, everything is standard, that system is going to be so much more efficient and give you such good quality air in your house if it's installed right by the right installer. Then you're in good shape. You don't have to buy the bells and whistles unless you just want them.
Well, another example of how things change, and I'm sorry to drill down on air conditioning here, and
that's
when
fine.
It's 63 degrees outside, but
that's fine. It will get hot, I promise you.
Yes, we know that. But another example of where things have changed is how you used to be vehemently opposed to heat pumps.
Yes, good example. The air-to-air heat pumps that came out, and if you are old, as Charlie and I, we remember when the power company, which was a monopoly, were pushing all electric neighborhoods. And they were pushing these heat pumps because they were trying to compete with the natural gas companies, which were a monopoly too. So it was a little different back then. Houston has evolved a lot in those ways too. We won't get into that now. But the new heat pumps today, even though you still have to have backup heat, you can have natural gas, or you can have electric heat get back up when it gets really cold because you want that heat capacity. But they work very well, very efficient, and they've really made a lot of changes in that equipment to make them worth and not a big extra cost either. And most of the technicians, which they didn't back then, know how to work on those just like they do anything else. So it's become a pretty common standard. I don't have a problem with it at all. For mild heating days like right now, 60s, 50s, 40s, you can run super efficient because the systems are so efficient. Remember, a heat pump is just a reversing valve on an air conditioner that you don't need to have the natural gas or the electric heat kick in because that's really strong heat and this is more mild.
In fact, when we moved in here,
Yes.
they used to have 3 air conditioners across the back of this building, and we replaced them with 2 heat pumps. And we saw an immediate shift in the comfort in the building. Well, it helps that they redid all the ductwork too, but to the point, our utility bills dropped enormously off those old systems because they used to use strip heat to heat the building. And the heat pump was so much more efficient in generating heat in the building. And I'll tell you what, it heats up a lot faster than it did with those heat strips, believe it or not. When we go to heat, turn it up, the building, you'll feel it within about, well, it's a 4,000 square foot building, so it takes about 20, 30 minutes, but it's warm and it stays right on.
And it's back to the new equipment is so much more advanced no matter what you're buying compared to the old stuff we used to have. Oh my goodness, it was a lot different.
So I tell my wife. That's why I tell Sandy, I need that new camera because it's so much more efficient.
I got an i13 that has the best camera in the world. I just got click. Okay.
My Pro actually has better.
Well, you said you have a fisheye. I don't care about the fisheye effect.
All right.
Yeah, that's right. All
right. So hey, let's wrap this thing up here because
let's wrap it up.
Why don't you go ahead? Where are you going to be this weekend?
This weekend, I'm going to be on the air on Saturday from 9 to 12 and Sunday from 8 to 11 on Sports Radio 610, but you can also listen to the show at HomeShowRadio.com, maybe somewhere else. People tell me Spotify or something. I don't know how any of that works, but it's out there, and I'll be there every weekend. And by the way, stay tuned because in the next 6 weeks, we're going to have home shows all over Houston, and I'll be attending those too.
And if you're looking for people you can trust to do work around your house, you can go to HomeShowRadio.com in the Houston area, and you'll find a list of all of our home show pros right there on the homepage. And if you don't know who, but you know what, you can go and click on Ask a Pro, and you'll find all the pros outlined for you right there. If you'd like to send in your questions for us to be part of this program, that's easy peasy too. Go back to that same website, click the Ask Tom button. You can either send us a video, you can send it in writing. Either way, we would love to hear from you, and we will use your questions either here on this show, in our early edition show on Sunday mornings, or on our new videos. We post a new video with Tom answering a question every day at HomeShowRadio.com, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. And I'm going to just pimp the YouTube channel here for a second. There are literally thousands of these videos there with questions to every answer going back, and you can watch not only the evolution of information on the show, but you can watch the evolution of Tom and me.
Fat and thin and fat and thin and fat and thin and fat and thin.
And if you go back far enough, there's ones with Tom that has hair. So you go back far enough.
Hair and no hair.
Right, and my hair turns black if you go back far enough. So it's a beautiful thing. We've been doing this a little while.
Long time.
But there's a lot of that there. And, of course, there's lots of information available for you at HomeShowRadio.com, and we appreciate you watching. We will return here again next Thursday at 4 o'clock Central Time. You want to send in your questions, go ahead and you can send them in any time. And if you want to save them up, you can put them in when we come back. Or Hell's Bells, you can call Tom on the radio this weekend on Saturday on Sports Radio 610. We thank you for watching, and we will see you next Thursday.
Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio. Home Show Radio. Free advice from a pro who